it's very important to understand the difference between stretching a muscle, rubbing a muscle, and putting pressure on a muscle because they all do completely different things. When you stretch a muscle, you're taking a muscle and you're moving it through a range of motion. So if I was going to stretch my upper trapezius muscle here, I might bring my head to the side and I might feel it pulling here. What's happening when you stretch a muscle, this is my little muscle model here, but when you stretch a muscle, you're taking a muscle that's in its resting place and you're allowing it to get a little bit longer. These little triangles kind of represent the muscle fibers and little hooks that will help contract or elongate a muscle. So in this example, the muscle got a little bit longer as I'm moving it through a range of motion. Now, the brain will only let the muscle get longer in this fashion based on how safe the brain thinks it would be. So maybe after a while of stretching, you might notice that you can stretch a little bit more, get a little bit deeper into your stretch. That's just because your brain is basically allowing it to get a little bit further. So maybe the next time you do that hamstring stretch, your brain says, okay, I'll let you get this far. Maybe next time your brain says, I'll let you get this far. And even after a long period of time, you might even be able to get all the way to the end where your muscle appears to be as long as possible. In this situation, your muscle is actually not getting longer. These things are not really changing. It's just how much your brain is letting that go, which you notice sometimes when you say you do a workout or you do a certain activity and you go to stretch, you can't really even get much range of motion. Maybe you only get to this. Well, it's because your brain is saying, take a rest, be careful. I'm slightly injured and doesn't necessarily want to let you get super long. Stretching is great for helping teach the brain to, let yourself use your full range of motion. It's also great for increasing circulation. It's also great for telling the muscle how to repair itself after exercise. There's, many great reasons to stretch. But if you have a muscle that is holding muscle tension, which means that it's contracted in a particular spot, when you stretch it, it might let go a little bit and elongate just a teeny bit, but that muscle tension is still existing. And then when you go back to rest, that muscle tightness is still there. And the brain is choosing to hold muscle tension again, holding contracted portion of the muscle because it wants to protect you. And it's not until it learns that you're safe that it will let it relax. So in this situation, when you have this muscle knot or this muscle tension there, if you go and rub it, it might relax a little bit because you're increasing the pliability of the muscle. You're moving it around, you're increasing circulation. So it might kind of let go a little bit, but then after maybe an hour, 30 minutes to an hour, it'll start becoming tight again, becoming knotted up. And massage and rubbing an area, it'd be like, okay, well, if I've got this muscle tension here, if I rub it, it feels good. It feels sore, so it feels like it's going to be useful. And it is useful, it's increasing the circulation. It's helping the muscle be a little bit healthier, but it's not necessarily training the muscle to relax. And oftentimes we want to rub things because it feels sore, and it feels like it's doing something to rub it. But the rubbing is not producing the long-term effects to those muscle knots in the same way that stretching is not. So again, going back to this muscle tension, if this muscle knot is there, that muscle is going to be irritated and sore. It's holding tension for days, weeks, months, very long time. And it's going to be pretty unhappy. So when you touch it, or when you stretch it, or when you rub it, it's going to be sore. Just because it's sore and just because it feels good to rub it doesn't necessarily mean that that's an effective way to get it to relax. The best way to get muscles to relax is by putting prolonged pressure. So here again is that muscle knot. If I introduce pressure by pushing with a tool or my finger or a practitioner and just hold that pressure, at first, the brain is going to say, ouch, that hurts. This is an irritated area of my body. I don't feel good. I don't feel safe. And it's going to produce some level of pain. After about 30 seconds of putting that pressure on that area, then the muscle will start to relax. The brain says, okay, actually, this isn't so bad. I think I'm okay. And it will start to actually reduce that muscle knot in a way that is long-term, that is going to maintain itself over the course of hours, days, weeks, and months. So, instead of taking, in this example of using this muscle, instead of stretching it, which would just kind of bring those muscle fibers apart from each other, or instead of rubbing it, which might irritate it or might temporarily reduce that muscle tension, if you use a tool or your hand or a practitioner to put pressure on that muscle and hold that consistently without moving for longer than you think you should, 30 to 90 seconds at least, to allow that muscle first to complain and say, ouch, that hurts. And then over time, it'll start to hurt less and less, and it'll start to relax, and the brain starts to tell those muscle fibers to stop contracting. And it's this technique which is going to make the biggest difference in terms of muscle knots and muscle tension, which all of us have in our body in various places. We develop muscle tension because either we're, too unstable, the brain is trying to protect an area, or because you have had an injury or surgery, or even if you've overused an area and the brain is trying to protect it because of that. So it's important to know that those three things are different. And if you have tightness or you feel like you're holding tension at rest, that the stretching and rubbing techniques are not necessarily as effective as putting pressure on it. I'm going to give you another quick example of a muscle that's tight in almost everyone. We have this one, which almost everyone can relate to and is tight. But another muscle that's tight in almost everyone is the hip flexor. And so this is the hip flexor here. This is your iliacus and your psoas muscle. And tension in those muscles can develop from sitting, from any kind of low back pain, pelvic pain, a lot of different things that I talk quite a bit about. When there's muscle tension in this, doing a stretch, going back to this example of stretching, if you do a stretch, like a lunge stretch, again, that might help pull those muscle fibers away from each other. It might take them from here to maybe here, and over time, maybe here. But it's not, when they go back to neutral, that muscle knot is still going to be present. So that's okay. It's going to help increase circulation. It's going to be healthy, and it's a great thing to do, but it's not necessarily going to get rid of that muscle tightness. Then going back to the rubbing technique, if you go and you use a tool or your hands and you're rubbing on it, and you're your pelvic bone, and you go right inside, and you're in there, maybe a massage therapist is working on it, maybe you're doing a lot of movement as you are pushing on it, that's all rubbing. And all of that might help break up scar tissue, might help with fascia, it might help increase some circulation, it might temporarily get that muscle to relax, but then after you stop, it'll be tight again. So using something like a practitioner or a hip hook or ball to put prolonged pressure on that area is ideal. This is why I created the hip hook, so that you can at home find that spot, use your own body weight to put pressure, a little bit, to put pressure on that spot, and using the lever to get at the iliacus, so that you can seriously sustain this consistent pressure without moving, without rubbing, for a long period of time, for 30 to 90 seconds. And with that technique, you will have that muscle will have an opportunity to relax, and your brain will have an opportunity to change that pattern that has probably been there for decades. We hold muscle tension in our body for decades without even recognizing it before it even manifests into symptoms. And so it's really important to understand the difference of this, because I have so many people that come into my office that are doing stretching routines and are doing yoga or doing all these, maybe getting massage where there's a lot of rubbing going on. And that's great. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's not going to solve the problem that they're hoping it will solve. So I hope this has been useful. If you have any questions, please reach out. I'm happy to help.